People used to ask Ida, what is Rolfing? Really, Ida? Or, well, people didn't ordinarily call her Ida. What is Rolfing, really, Dr. Rolf? And she answered it so many different ways that clearly Rolfing was hard to pin down. One of the things I think about was that she kept repeating so often that it became called Rolf's first law, that if it's anywhere in the body, it's everywhere in the body. And the corollary was where you think it comes from, it being the adhesion, the problem, what's stuck someplace. Where you think it comes from, it probably doesn't. Keep looking. Now that to me is really the beginning point to understanding Rolfing.
It's a question of perception. You know, you're trying to perceive. Someone walks in, you're going to do something. Okay. So it all comes down to different modes of perception, different ways of perception to get to the same end. And to me, what the end is, when a person walks in, the question I hold in my consciousness, in my awareness, is, okay, what would it look like? What would I see if this structure could perfectly express the being that resides within it? What would that look like? That's the question. That's the question that I look from.
Well, I see the strains and the stress in the tissue and how everything has organized around that. And that's what's so fascinating to me, is to find a way over the years of being able to get the client into awareness about how that has formed in some way. And to be able to move it, nudge up against it, but then have them experience how that got formed, how that belief or how that organization started to happen, and to have a relationship with it in some ways so that they then may have a little more choice to let it open up and move. And it's a combination. It isn't just me doing it. It's the relationship with the client that is making the difference as well. Because ultimately what I'm doing is bringing it to their awareness so they can use it as a way to stay more conscious. And so it's a tool for them. It's not an enemy. It's a way to stay awake.
A lot of times I feel like I'm in a triad. There's me and the body and the person. So my job is to help the person start to listen to their body.
In a way, that's what we do. We help people bring things to consciousness that they have buried. And they've buried them because they can't deal with them. They can't get out. So they just go on. You know, never mind, let's just go on, do the best we can with what we have left, right? So people are limping along with all sorts of damage they carry from all these things. The real miracle is that the body can adapt well enough for us to limp along. You know, that's incredible. That it can distribute the strain throughout the whole structure and make it so that you can keep going, even with a joint that is very, very compromised, right? You know, that's the real miracle, is that there's distribution of stress and that it is a whole system that can absorb that kind of nastiness. And then we come along with our vision and our ability to change tissue, and we find these areas of damage and clean it up.
You take your car in to have a revision, but we forget about our bodies. So I see myself as a car mechanic or a cleaning lady, sometimes a plumber, sometimes an electrician. So my job is to get that mass into relationship to the gravitational field, and for each muscle in relationship to itself, and all the other kinds of things like relationship with yourself, relationship to your space, relationship to the people around you.
We're taught to look at gravity as a force. Okay? Gravity is actually a relationship. Okay? Gravity is the relationship between our body and the body of the planet.
Everything in the world adds energy to the body. The point about Rolfing is to add energy to the body in a way that makes a positive difference towards what Dr. Rolf used to refer to as order. And her idea of order has to do with how the body organizes itself in space by being weight-bearing. And whether it can do that in a way that is without pain and with resilience or not.
When I look at the body, I see this, and this, which is putting stress here, there, and there, and there. I can do a mechanical analysis and structural, and go, well, yeah, of course the pain's there because that's gone there and that's gone there and it's got...
The body actually starts to lay down connective tissue 20 minutes, 40 minutes after a whiplash injury. The body begins to restructure the tissue in a wounded area. So we are shaped by the events that occur to us.
Stress can accumulate for a number of reasons. Okay? Physical stress is very obvious, okay? But emotional stress is equally important and can tighten tissues just as much, if not more sometimes, than physical stress. Okay? We hold particularly what we call negative emotions, emotions that we're not proud of or don't like display. We hold them in our musculature because we tighten the muscles that would be involved in the expression.
The body begins to restructure the tissue in a wounded area. So we are shaped by the events that occur to us, the fall off of the tricycle, the automobile accident, the heartbreak, the virus that attacked our liver. All of these events create conditions in the body that cause contraction.
It's like unwrapping all of our belief systems, our patternings that we've developed and kind of absorbed over the years from our culture, from our religion, from our parents, from our teachers, from our different experiences, and then we never question how we got that. And so it's part of unwrapping, as I call it, and just like we do in Rolfing, it's unwrapping our belief systems, so to speak, and come to maybe a new way of thinking from who we are now and coming from our own experience rather than someone else's.
You change the structure, you change the function. You put things where they belong, thinking is clearer, there's a better conversation between mind and body.
What is more profound than changing the perceiver? I mean, all perception is subjective. In some sense, everything is subjective in that way. So in a way, when we talk about matching the subjective and the objective, I think that that's one of the things that we're doing, is we're trying to get the subjective cleaned up to the point where it can actually perceive the cosmos as it is, and themselves as they are.
She would say, you don't, as Rolfers, you don't make change. She said, what you do is make change possible. So she really put the healing process into the body's system as a whole, and she saw it as a whole, and by whole, every level, not just physical, not just the physical structural level, but others as well.
So you see a hodgepodge of forces that have acted on the structure. The Rolfer's job is to seek out what's the underlying natural pattern, and then get the organism, release the barriers that prevent the organism from agreeing with itself and manifesting its natural pattern. And it's not a mysterious thing. It's very obvious once you start working, because it's a kind of blooming that occurs in the organism. It actually wants to go there.
You work on the level that you can get your hands on. And usually the body can be the best, one of the best ways to get in. And make a difference in that person's body-mind. I mean, it's almost impossible, really, to separate body and mind.
Every part of our life is connected to every other part of our life, just like every part of the body is connected to every other part of the body. Okay? And that the emphasis in the culture on compartmentalizing and breaking things down into component pieces, is good for analysis, but it's not good for operation. Okay? Analysis requires breaking things down, okay? But working with a live structure is a matter of integration.
I don't think it's so difficult to take a body apart, and that goes on all the time. But it's putting it together again, and in the process of learning Rolfing and practicing that, you learn to see that way and you learn to look that way. It's not necessarily about symptoms, alleviating symptoms, yet symptoms can be a focus also. But it's saying what's causing the symptoms, where's the imbalance, where's the integration lacking, and what can I do with Rolfing to help that be released and then bring the body together again.
When the system organizes, when it coheres, when it agrees with itself, it's as if all of a sudden it sort of pops open, and there's as if there's a spatial presence inside the body that is expanding it. And that's very different than what most people think of when you say stand up straight. Because when most people think of standing up straight, it's head up, they lift their chest, they throw their shoulders back, and there's no increase in volume. In fact, there's a loss of volume. Most people lose the back space altogether. But when the body opens, it opens in 3 dimensions. And it's a magnificent feeling.
It's freedom. It's to work with people to achieve freedom of movement, freedom of movement in their bodies, to assist people in optimizing their options so that they have more resource for adapting to whatever comes at them in the world. Ida used to talk about it as the potential for the evolution of consciousness.
As I thought about it over the years, she was doing her best to try to crack our thick skulls and open us up to an Einsteinian kind of model of existence. And she would talk about it sometimes, about the limitations of the Cartesian, Newtonian kinds of physics. As brilliant as they were linear, too rational. They didn't take into account all of the other stuff, the space, just as classical anatomy, in its beginnings in the 15th century or whenever that happened, they were so interested in inventorying the bones and the muscles and the nerves and organs and taking people apart bit by bit, they discarded the fascia, the substance that really forms the medium of relationship and communication in the body.
Ida always saw connective tissue and fascia as a means by which something else could be accomplished. And that means, I think, has to do with the capacity to be open to, engage with, and explore the energy of life itself more and more fully and more fully. Just you open fascia, there's more life. And I don't think fascia is the end of it. Yeah, it gets pretty quantum.